For over 4 decades, one man has stood at the center of Kenya's political storm, loved by millions, feared by opponents, and respected even by those who disagree with him. This is the story of Raila Amolo Odinga, the man who refused to give up. In the quiet hills of Maseno, in Kenya's Nyanza province, a child was born who would one day become one of Africa's most resilient political figures. His name, Raila Amolo Odinga. Born on January 7, 1945, Raila was the second born of Jaramogi Oginga Odinga and Mary Ajuma Odinga. His father, Jaramogi, wasn't just any man. He was a revolutionary thinker, a freedom fighter, and later Kenya's first vice president after independence. Raila attended Kisumu Union Primary School and later joined Maranda High School, one of the most respected schools in Western Kenya. He was a bright and curious student, known not only for his sharp intellect but also for his bold questions and strong sense of justice. After completing his O-levels, Raila's father arranged for him to study abroad, a rare opportunity at the time. In 1962, Raila moved to the German Democratic Republic, East Germany, where he attended the Herder Institute in Leipzig for language studies. It was here, far from home, that Raila's worldview expanded. He witnessed the Cold War divide, socialism versus capitalism, and the struggles of working people across the world. These experiences shaped his political philosophy deeply. He later joined the Technical University of Magdeburg, where he studied mechanical engineering and graduated in 1970. By the time Raila returned to Kenya, he was more than an engineer. He was a thinker, disciplined, focused, and quietly preparing for a life that will be consumed by politics, resistance, and reform. His father gave him a name, but the struggle gave him a mission. The 1970s and 80s were turbulent years in Kenya's political landscape. The dream of being independent had begun to sour. Under President Daniel Arap Moi, political dissent was dangerous, and those who spoke too loudly paid a heavy price. By this time, Raila Amolo Odinga had returned from Germany, working as a lecturer at the University of Nairobi, and later managing his company, East African Spectra. But his heart was not in his business alone. He was drawn, irresistibly, to the cause of justice and democracy, a fire that had burned even brighter after watching his father's struggles against political repression. Then came August 1st, 1982. A group of low-ranking Air Force officers attempted to overthrow Moi's government. The coup failed, and the aftermath was brutal. Thousands were arrested. Torture, fear, and silence gripped the nation. Among those accused of being connected to the coup, Raila Amolo Odinga. Though he was never proven to have taken part, the government alleged that he had prior knowledge to the plots. In August 1982, Raila was arrested and detained without trial. He would spend the next 6 years behind bars, in isolation, cut off from his family and the outside world. Inside those walls, he faced the harshest conditions imaginable. No contact with his wife, Ida, no word from his children, no access to books or visitors. Yet, even in that darkness, Raila's resolve did not break. They could imprison his body, but not his mind. When he was finally released in February 1988, he emerged thinner. older, but stronger. For most people, 6 years of silence will mean the end of political life. For Raila, it was only the beginning. But the government wasn't done with him yet. Just a year later, in 1989, Raila was arrested again, accused of supporting underground movements pushing for democracy. He was detained a second time, this time for nearly a year. And then again in 1990, following the assassination of Foreign Affairs Minister Robert Ouko, Raila was once more detained for the third time. Across 8 long years in prison, Raila became more than a politician. He became a symbol of endurance, of defiance, and of Kenya's struggle for freedom. When he finally walked out of detention for the last time in 1991, Kenya was changing. The calls for multiparty democracy had grown too loud to ignore. And once again, Raila was at the center of history, ready to turn his suffering into a movement that will reshape Kenya's future. When Raila Odinga walked free in 1991, Kenya was still standing on the edge of transformation. After nearly 3 decades of one-party rule under KANU and President Daniel Arap Moi, the demand for freedom had reached a breaking point. The people wanted their voices back. And among those voices, one name rang the loudest: Raila Amolo Odinga. The return to multi-party democracy didn't happen overnight. It was born in sweat, blood, and prison cells. And when the government finally lifted the ban on opposition parties, Raila wasted no time. He joined his father, the veteran freedom fighter Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, to form the Forum for the Restoration of Democracy. FORD became the heartbeat of the new Kenya, a symbol of hope, a coalition of dreamers, and a gathering of men and women who believed that freedom was worth the risk. But like many revolutionary movements, it faced internal divisions. When the movement split in 1992, Jaramogi led FORD Kenya, while Raila threw himself behind his father's vision with passion and loyalty. The 1992 general election was historic, Kenya's first multi-party poll in decades. Jaramogi lost to Moi, but the message was clear: Kenya's democracy was alive again. Not through bullets, but through ballots. When Jaramogi Oginga Odinga passed away in 1994, it was more than the death of a father. It was the passing of a torch. Raila stepped out from his father's shadow, not as a son continuing a legacy, but as a leader creating his own. Determined to unite the fractured opposition, Raila formed his own political vehicle, the National Development Party. At first, few took him seriously, but Raila's charisma, his ability to connect with ordinary Kenyans, and his unshakable energy transformed NPD into a national force. By the 1997 elections, Raila finished third, an impressive showing for a relatively new party. But it wasn't just about numbers, it was about momentum. He had proven that he could rally millions, cross tribal lines, and speak the language of the people. In 1998, in a surprising political twist, Raila entered into a cooperation agreement with the ruling KANU party, the same system that had once imprisoned him. Critics called it betrayal. Supporters saw it as strategy. Raila himself said it was a political pragmatism, an effort to reform the system from within. During this period, Raila served as Minister of Energy, where he pushed for reforms in electricity distribution and local investment in infrastructure. A preview of the development-minded leader he would later become. But alliances in Kenyan politics are like shifting sands. By 2002, Raila had broken away from KANU, joining forces with the National Rainbow Coalition, NAC, a powerful new alliance led by Moi Kibaki. The coalition rallying cry was simple but powerful: Kibaki Tosha. With those two words, Raila changed history. His endorsement united the opposition and propelled Kibaki to a landslide victory, ending KANU's 40-year rule. By 2007, Raila Odinga had become more than just a politician. He was a movement, a symbol of defiance, reform, and hope. Under the Orange Democratic Movement, ODM, Raila promised a new beginning, a Kenya for all, built on justice, equity, and economic reform. His message resonated across generations and ethnic lines. He spoke of ending corruption, empowering youth, and building a nation where leadership meant service, not privilege. Facing him was the incumbent President Moi Kibaki, representing the Party of National Unity, PNU. Both men were seasoned politicians and both believed they could lead Kenya into the future. As the December 2007 general election approached, the tension in Kenya was electric. Opinion polls placed Raila slightly ahead. Millions lined up to vote, believing change was within reach. But as results began to come in, something changed. What started as celebration soon turned to confusion, and then to outrage. The Electoral Commission declared Kibaki the winner in a rushed ceremony. Within hours, Kenya descended into chaos. The disputed election unleashed violence unlike anything Kenya had ever seen since independence. Over 1,000 people lost their lives and hundreds of thousands were displaced. Communities that had lived by the side for decades were torn apart by fear, anger, and grief. In the midst of this darkness, Raila faced his hardest choice. Would he let Kenya burn in his name, or fight for peace, even at a personal cost? After weeks of international mediation led by Kofi Annan, Raila chose dialogue over deconstruction. In February 2008, he signed a power-sharing agreement with Kibaki, a moment that ended the bloodshed and restored stability. Under this historical deal, Kenya established its first coalition government, and Raila was sworn in as the nation's prime minister. It was a landmark moment, not of victory, but of sacrifice. Raila had chosen peace over power and nation over self. During his 5 years as prime minister, Raila focused on infrastructure, governance, and reform. He helped steer the creation of Kenya's 2010 Constitution, a document that redefined governance, devolution, and citizens' rights. Under his leadership, projects like the Kasupa Highway and major port expansions became symbol of Kenya's modernization. It was a chapter of healing, proof that even after tragedy, leadership can still mean building bridges, not burning them. But the story of Raila Odinga was far from over. Even as peace returned, the fire within him, the dream of a just, united Kenya, still burned bright. And soon, he will return to the ballot box once more. The year is 2013. Kenya is changing. A new constitution, a new generation of leaders, and a new sense of possibility. For Raila Amolo Odinga, it was another chance to fulfill the dream he had fought for all his life, a united, prosperous Kenya. Representing the Coalition for Reforms and Democracy, CORD, Raila entered the 2013 election with the same energy and passion that had defined his career. Facing him was Uhuru Kenyatta, son of Kenya's first president. The election was close, but once again, controversy followed. The Supreme Court upheld Uhuru Kenyatta's victory. Raila accepted the decision peacefully. For a man who had endured prison, loss, and betrayal, it was another reminder. Democracy means respecting the system, even when it hurts. But he didn't stop. He returned in 2017, leading the NASA coalition, the National Super Alliance. The elections that year were marred by irregularities. The Supreme Court made a historic ruling, annulling the results, the first such ruling in Africa's history. For a brief moment, Raila's lifelong dream of electoral justice seemed within reach. But when the repeat election proceeded without key reforms, he refused to participate, choosing principle over politics. The nation watched, divided yet curious. Had Kenya reached another breaking point? Then came one of the most unexpected moments in Kenya's political history, the handshake. A single handshake, but one that carried decades of pain, rivalry, and hope. After years of confrontation, Raila chose peace once again. The two leaders agreed to work together under the Building Bridges Initiative, BBI, a project aimed at national unity, constitutional reform, and inclusion. The handshake marked Raila's evolution from rebel to reformer, from opposition leader to elder statesman. He had learned that sometimes unity demands compromise, and that true power lies in reconciliation, not revenge. In 2022, Raila ran once again, this time under the Azimio la Umoja coalition. His campaign was built on the promise of social equity, youth empowerment, and continuity of progress. Though the election was close, he lost to William Ruto, and yet he accepted the outcome with peace, urging his supporters to remain united and law-abiding. Even in defeat, Raila Odinga's message remained the same. Kenya is bigger than any individual. Decade after decade, Raila Odinga had stood for justice, democracy, and unity. He has inspired millions, not just through victory, but through perseverance. He is called Baba, not just as a political nickname, but as a reflection of what he represents, a father of modern Kenyan democracy. For more than half a century, one man's name has echoed through Kenya's political heartbeats. From the cold prison cells of Kamiti to the roaring chants of Uhuru Park, from tears of loss to the moments of triumph, Raila Amolo Odinga has walked through every season of this nation's history. He has been called many things: a freedom fighter, a reformist, a dreamer, and to millions, simply Baba. He has won elections and lost them. He has been betrayed and yet forgiven. He has been imprisoned and yet endured. Few leaders in Africa have carried the weight of history the way he has. Raila Odinga's story is not just the story of one man. It's the story of Kenya itself, a nation still growing, still healing, still striving towards its promise. He may never sit in the highest office, but his legacy already sits in the hearts of millions. Because true leadership is not measured by power, it is measured by the lives you touch and the change you ignite. And long after the cheers fade and the flags are folded, the name Raila Amolo Odinga remains, a symbol of courage, conviction, and the unbreakable spirit of Kenya.